The beginning of every lesson, we always start by narrowing down the learning target and breaking it apart. So the students will always know the learning target, and if there's language in there, vocabulary that is academic, that they don't use very often, I try to go over that first. And so usually we have a conversation about it, so like we did in the writing, and then one of my students that responded to it, she actually gave an example. She's like, I want to tell you an example. For example, the rainfall. I like it when the rain falls, but someone else might not like it when the rain falls. So then I was able to use that as a teaching tool that she came up with on her own with the whole group. And then I said, how many of you like that? And then how many of you don't? And then we gave the reasons why. So I used that towards the supporting details and the main idea part of the lesson. I think the visuals are so important. Anchor chart, able to discuss and then write it down and then discuss again, going back to it all often is really important. And then giving them the opportunity to independently practice that on their own using a graphic organizer really helps them to formulate their ideas and organize it. So having the rug is essential because it gives students a place to go to, and it's an environmental thing. So for them to feel more intimate, like group setting, and so that it makes them feel like they can communicate easier. When you're in desks, it's like your own personal space, and you have that barriers that kind of block communication a little bit. So when they're on the rug, it gives them an opportunity to still have their personal space, but it opens the communication so much easier. They're all in one place, it's an intimate setting, and then they can just turn and talk, and it's a nice environment for them. I had to set up the vocabulary card for them, because they know that all of our vocabulary words go on the word wall, the word ceiling. I had to set up the graphic organizer. I kind of blew it up for them so they could see it visually, and then I used I had to have sticky notes. The chart was essential, and they were able to use the sticky notes to show me that they could put their main idea and then the details around it. So I used that as a formative assessment tool. And then I was able to manipulate those sticky notes and put them in the graphic organizer so that I can model it without giving too much of an inquiry approach. It was more, or advocacy approach. It was more inquiry based. I think management is the biggest part of any lesson because it's how students perform. They knew at their desk they were working independently. They know my expectations because we talk about it frequently. I reinforce it by discussing it with them when they're on task. I show them that I'm watching, that I can see that they are constantly observing the room. The nonverbal cues are really important because they know that the transition is there, that for time's sake and for efficiency. So there's no discussion or dialogue going in between place to place because that could take a long time. But because I do the silent signal, the nonverbal cues, and because I let them go back to their seat individually, those kinds of things eliminate those problems. I was really pleased with their engagement. There was just one student who I had to kind of probe a little bit more, and I was able to do that by having my students back here that I was working with. I was constantly scanning the room, and then I walked, when they were able to work independently, I could walk around and see where all my students are and talk to them independently if that was needed. I think every child goes through the pet phase where they have a family pet, or they have that desire, or it's brought up. Should we have a pet? Should we not have a pet? Do you want a pet? Do you not want a pet? And so they're able to voice those opinions right now, and then they could bring it back to their parents in a friendly letter eventually if they wanted to do that, or their family, auntie, uncle. I mean, there's always something you can improve in a lesson, and I think that in this particular lesson, it went pretty well. I think that next time I would have the sticky notes already on their desk so that they wouldn't have to wait. They were patient, but I think that that was kind of some time that they didn't need to be wasting. They could be using getting to work right away. Another thing I might change is them talking more to each other and being able to share more about the end results. And they were able to do that. They were able to talk about their work with a partner and revise it and add to it, brainstorm. I gave them that. But I think also relating it back to the rubric is important, because then they can see, they can self-check that way, or they can peer check with the rubric. And I briefly mentioned it, but it needs to be a tool that guides them for the final draft. So I would probably, in the next lesson, use that a lot more as a key tool for them to know what I'm assessing them on.